All right. Next slide, Rita, please. Again, I want to welcome all of you today to our co-event with DECA and Capital, Digital Equity and Nonprofit Needs. Today's agenda is full of awesome opportunities to hear from those working in this space, an opportunity to share your experience, discuss your needs, ask questions about resources and what others are doing in the space, expand our networks, and share whatever is relevant for your organization. We're going to start with a level-setting panel discussion on digital equity, move into breakouts for discussion and share out. We'll have a short break so you can stretch your legs. We know it's 2 hours. Some water, and then we'll come back to discuss themes shared in the breakouts and hear from a second funding and resources panel. We'll end today with a discussion on opportunities to collaborate in the future and hold open the space so that you can network, ask questions, stay late. We envision it like that fun time after the conference is over when you have a little bit of time to connect with others. There's a lot in today, so we're gonna move fairly quickly. We won't be doing extensive bios. We will ask you to refer to the guide that we shared beforehand, or again, use the chat to ask questions. And we can go ahead, Rita, can you grab the link to the guide and share that in the chat as well? One final note, this is new and exciting to us. We did not envision over 200 people when we started this idea, and we're thrilled with this kind of response. So we're gonna ask for your feedback. We're an evaluation via Eventbrite after the session, and we have lots to learn. We value your input, so please take the time to share with us. We want to recognize that we're doing a digital equity event without online, so inherently creating some inequities with access, with internet speed, with all sorts of things. Our goal is to make this as transparent as possible and kind of sit in that tension of how do we advance and make mistakes and learn from what we're doing. So we're grateful for you experimenting with us today. We want to recognize that we have some inequities here with us and that we are learning from them and open to naming those and seeing what we can discover as we name those and learn more from each other. Okay, so to start, we have an opening activity for everybody. It's fairly painless. So I'm going to open the poll. We're going to launch a poll today. And we're going to ask, from your perspective, what is the top challenge related to digital equity that your organization is dealing with today? We have a number of options that have been curated from previous surveys and conversations. We're going to use the top 4 to create our breakout rooms later today, but for now, just share with us your opinion. From your perspective, what is the top digital equity related challenge that your organization is dealing with today? And this is so much more fun than I ever imagined it would be. I'm super excited about the polling feature. I can see about half of you have weighed in, about 44%. So we'd love to hear from you. What's the top digital equity? Awesome. Gonna give it about 30 more seconds. And someone's asking how you do polls on Zoom. We just learned, which we're super excited about. It's a setting in your Zoom meeting feature. You just have to add the poll beforehand, which is a really cool opportunity. Awesome, so we have about 78% voting, which is pretty good for turnout. We're doing a great job. If anybody has any other, anything else they want to add there, you have about 10 more seconds. We'll keep it open. All right. It looks like we have our results. I'm going to end polling. Awesome. And I'm going to share the results really quick. We're just going to take a look. The number 1 was tech literacy. Looks like followed by internet access, training on working with clients in digital equity conditions, and 13% hardware and resources. Awesome. All right. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our colleague, Rita, who is going to take a moment to introduce us to the next section. Thanks, y'all.
Yeah, we are really excited. This is Rita Taylor. We are really excited about about this event. It's a big experiment. So again, as Chelsea mentioned, we didn't anticipate quite as large of attendance. So we pivoted very quickly, and we'll go through the agenda again and explain a lot more about the technology that we'll be using. But first, what we want to do is really dig into digital equity a bit more. And so I'm going to turn it over to Colleen Billiot at the city, and she's going to introduce our next activity with a panel.
Good morning, everyone. It's a great honor. It's humbling to see it. So many people on this call, and I appreciate it. And I think it's going to be a great event for 2 hours. I do want to introduce to you all Chair Nehemiah Pitts of the Community Technology and Telecommunications Commission for the City of Austin, as well as Michael Ward Jr., who is President and CEO of the Austin Urban Technology Movement. These two members of DECA, as well as their respective organizations, are just phenomenal members of our community in pushing towards digital equity and in, further closing that digital divide. And they do a lot of really good things. So today, to introduce those of you who may not be well acquainted with the concepts of digital equity and digital inclusion, we wanted to have them have a short conversation to give you a better handle on it, a better grasp of it. So Chair Pitts, Michael, I have a few questions that I would love for you to have a conversation about from your respective perspectives. The first being, why is collaboration important to digital equity, especially at this time? The second is, what should folks know about digital equity in your sector, be it public or nonprofit? And the third is, what should folks know about collaboration in your sector around digital equity? So if you would like to begin, gentlemen.
Well, thank you so much, Colleen. Hey, Nehemiah, it's always a pleasure to connect with you again. Hello, is Nehemiah on?
Chair Pitts, you're muted. There we go.
There I go.
Perfect.
Yeah, so collaboration, where to begin? It's critical. First off, let me just say thank you for this opportunity. This is an example of manifest collaboration in the wake of trying times and unparalleled challenges, but yet we're still collaborating. I'm thrilled just to be part of this because it really is the only way to get things done in time of crisis. Give myself a minute and about 15 seconds to answer this question. I would say ultimately, when it comes to making the rubber meet the road and actually advancing towards outcomes and goals, if you don't have people to work with, if you don't have people to see things from different angles to help you see your blind spots, if you don't have people to help to give you energy and to help sustain your passion for this, then you really can't do it. And I'm not sure if that's what people were expecting in terms of my answer for this, but as the chair of a commission here who takes this oath very seriously and my contributions to the community, I'm just thankful that there are people to collaborate with.
Yeah, Nehemiah, I completely agree with that. I know you and I have had many conversations around what does collaboration look like, 2020, and this was before COVID, right? But now when we think about, okay, COVID has really opened up and highlighted a lot of the disparities that we're seeing. So what does collaboration look like now, during COVID? And I think a lot of people, at least this is my perspective, is that these challenges have been here forever, right? Like, this is not something that just happened this year or just happened the past few years, but these issues around the lack of access to the internet / technology, but also lack of understanding and competency of how to use them is why, digital inclusion is so important. And that ties into collaboration. Because right now, in order for us to actually address the digital divide, we have to do things we've never done before. We have to over communicate, over collaborate. We have to figure out where the gaps are and plug into those. Because like I said, this is something that's been here for hundreds of years. So if you have the same partnerships, if you're doing the same initiatives, you're not going to change anything. All you are doing is adding to the trend that is furthering the divide between whites and non-whites, between educated, uneducated, between experienced, inexperienced, between the have and have-nots. I mean, I could go on and on about how when we think about technology or digital access, it has really become a form of currency that really identifies whether or not you're going to be successful. So in order for us to overcome that, we really need to be working across nonprofits, working across corporations, working across governmental departments, because we all need a solidified effort to actually change the trends that we want to see. And I think that's a good segue into the next question that Colleen had, which is, what should folks know about digital equity, in your sector, whether it's public or nonprofit? So I'll hand it off to Nehemiah to talk about the public sector.
Sure. I'm not sure how we're doing on time now. I was just tracking my time, but yeah, I agree with you. I think it is a great segue because fundamentally, when you look at the dynamics of digital equity, and really what we're talking about are the dynamics of the digital divide, which is what makes digital equity and digital inclusion as goals our aspiration here on the call, at least as part of this conversation, and then organizations in general. The key thing is to think about how that came to be, and then therefore focus intentionally on deconstructing it to then achieve equity. It's very important when we're focusing on outcomes to be intentional about strategies and tactics and policies. Otherwise, very intentional policies of division that took place oftentimes decades, in some cases centuries ago, will then be allowed to cascade and still have an effect later. It's just one of those things that has to be addressed always, frankly. And I'm very thankful that as a city, shortly before, or right around the same time I became involved as a commissioner, I noticed a focus on addressing the legacy challenges of the city and our country and really, frankly, the world, and to getting those out front. And so when it comes to then looking at public sector or nonprofit, the key thing to know is that the key thing about achieving equity in each of those spaces is deconstructing how you got to the divide in each of those spaces, and then working in a measured fashion strategically to do that work. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I'm part of a lot of organizational calls in the nonprofit realm. So there's CRT, which is Community Resilience Trust Group. If y'all do not know that, I'll definitely Google them and look into the great work that CRT is doing. But when we look at the nonprofit sector, it's the fact that there's a lot of individuals that are working on this issue in various different angles. However, one of the challenges kind of goes back to this fragmentation and working in silos, right? When we first realized the issue around the digital divide, we launched our Texas Technology for All petition. So right now we are demanding Governor Abbott to increase access to internet, increase access to technology devices, but also upskilling opportunities inside the tech industry for those to make that transition. Fast forward, I realized, there's actually Operation Connectivity that Governor Abbott launched, I believe it was May 9th, that falls directly in line with what we're looking to do on our side. And as I dug some more, I realized, there's other initiatives going around the city or going across the state that focus around digital equity, but we're not collaborating the way we need to. We're kind of sharing information about what's being done in Austin versus the Valley versus Dallas, Houston, et cetera, for us to really have a deeper impact and a deeper issue. So when we think about the digital equity inside the nonprofit sector, the main thing I would say is that we need some help. We need some help because we can't do it by ourselves, because this issue is beyond just one organization or one aspect of society, but this is really a collective effort from everyone within society, because by allowing individuals to become tech savvy, by having access to the internet devices and then upskilling them, well, now we are reshaping our ecosystem. Now we are creating more opportunities for individuals to have a lifestyle that's self-sustaining. So whether that means an increase in revenue, an increase in social capital, an increase of networking, many different ways to do that. But just being plugged in to technology, into any type of signal, allows you to really push that conversation in the right direction. And then, I've kind of been talking about this overall, but the third question is, what should folks know about collaboration in your sector around digital equity? So I'm gonna take this one before I hand it off to you, Nehemiah. But there's a lot. Number one, there's DECA. DECA has worked with this event with Mission Capital. So DECA is the Digital Empowerment Community of Austin. So huge shout out to DECA. I've been a member with them for over a year now, and I love the great work that they're doing. There's the Greater Austin STEM ecosystem, which I'm also a part of, and there's about 175 organizations or entities that are around that are focusing on not digital equity, but the Greater Austin STEM ecosystem. That's another one. And then lastly, I'll throw out is the Austin Forum on Technology Society. These are all organizations or entities that I'm a part of that are focusing on digital equity or technology access in some way, shape, or form, because we realize that one of the biggest challenges that we're facing is this lack of exposure. We are not exposing individuals to this industry overall. We're not providing the foundation and the frameworks for people to have an overall competency of what it means to leverage these devices or leverage these new opportunities that are out there. And that is a huge disservice. And I always go back to that, because when I look at trends of Austin, as I look at the trends of the United States as across the board, here in Austin, when we think about the racial wealth divide, we are widening the gap between those that are white and Asian versus those that are Black and Hispanic, just looking at trends from a median income level. And now when I look at that, but then I think about how much revenue or how much income you could generate if you are in technology. But in order for you to be in technology, you have to first understand what level one is. And level one is just internet access. Level one is just having a computer, understanding how it works, just leveraging Gmail, leveraging social media, right? These are just level one. And until we actually provide a level one and a good foundation, we can't actually talk about ending the racial wealth divide or moving generations, because technology is the direction that we are moving in. And we've been in the 21st century for quite some time now. So I'm all about what is it that you are doing in your individual perspective, whether you're an educator, whether you're a corporation, whether you're a politician, whatever the case may be. What are you doing in your influence, in your network, to make sure you are collaborating with other individuals that are doing the same exact work you're doing, just in a different direction or a different way. So I'm all about collaboration and making sure you're reaching out to those organizations that fall in line with your mission, so we can collectively work on addressing this issue.
Yeah, well said. I do want to check in on time. How we doing?
We're slightly over, but we would still like to hear from you, Chair Pitts, of course.
All right. Well, I appreciate the opportunity. I think what Michael said was well stated. When it comes to my sector, the key thing is to understand that we are actively silo busting. I found it incumbent upon me when I joined the commission to work to try to break down silos of information, strategy, and knowledge sharing with technology in mind. It just so happened that I was already focused on some of our most affected communities before I became a commissioner. And so then with my experience with the digital divide, it was really a natural fit for me to have these conversations. But what I quickly recognized the opportunity for was really just to help us be more aligned when it came to strategic goals and outcomes as a city. And it was fortunate that that foundation was already laid by previous chairs within my commission and the commission in general, because focusing on telecommunications and technology means that we're at the heart of some of the legacy issues of the divide, whether it comes to redlining or when it comes to certain policies, when it comes to outright segregation of the city that resulted in the technological developments unfolding as they have over time. It's very important to begin with that context and then to be able to advance out of it. So the most important thing I could say when it comes to collaboration and how it impacts the public sector, it's critical because it's all about aligning outcomes and strategies. And fortunately, we have a city and a city council that fully agrees, at least based on everything that I've seen. I'm encouraged by the direction that we're headed at, and with people like this involved.
And that concludes it. Colleen, we'll hang it back to you.
All right, sounds good. I know there were some questions in the chat. I do want to respect sort of the timeline that we had, but I would say that I can easily pull those questions if Chelsea and Rita are good with it, and we can make sure that they get to Chair Pitts and Michael at the end of the session, and y'all can happily discuss over networking or just, you know, in any format that you feel is appropriate. So I'm going to hand it back to Rita and Chelsea and let them get on with the show. Thank you both, Chair Pitts and Michael, for the discussion. And again, just appreciate everything you do and just being part of DECA and making the city better.
Thank you for the opportunity to help.
For sure, appreciate it.
And
Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Chelsea.
I just wanted to make one note to y'all that we're going to collect the resources that are shared, the resources shared in the chat, and the recording of this video or of this event will all be shared after the event as well. So if there's anything you're worried about missing, we're going to make sure that we get all of those brought back up to the surface and back to everybody. And Michael shared some awesome resources in the chat, so we'll make sure those all go out as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Nima and Michael, so much. This was really interesting to listen to. Thank you for kind of level setting for us too, as we move into the rest of the programming. What we're going to do now is, one, I want to make sure to reiterate exactly what Chelsea just said, which is that all of the resources that are being shared in the chat, we're actually about to move into some other tools where we'd love to add some of those resources. So as we mentioned in the Eventbrite and then in the guide, if you're able to view that, we're using Zoom and Miro today. And so what we're going to do is actually in Miro, all of these resources, we're hoping we can gather them all so that it's publicly available and everyone can access this kind of information. And it's not just housed on a video or in chat or anything like that. So we're hoping we can share that broadly. So I'm going to start moving us into the tools a little bit. But before I do that, you just took a poll right before the panel, and I'm about to change this real quick. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask you to actually, if you're looking at the screen, you should see a slide with a big highlighted prep for breakouts, pick a topic slide. And what we're going to ask you to do is in your Zoom, if you will choose which breakout you want to go into. And so while we're choosing the breakouts, and then I'm explaining what we're up to for the breakouts and some of the other interactions we're going to have, if you will change your name in Zoom. So you also see a little picture on the screen of a Zoom screen, and everyone's Zoom unfortunately looks a little different, so it may look a little different for you. But if you can go find your, for those of you who haven't done this before, you're going to change your name. You're going to rename yourself so that you can change it to which one of these breakouts you want to go to, so that Chelsea, while we're talking, can go in and assign everyone to their breakouts. And we have a large attendance. So knowing we're going to have a large attendance, we did have to pivot a little bit. So we're asking you to pick one of these four: tech literacy, internet access, training for folks working in digitally inequitable scenarios, and hardware resources. So if you'll just change it either to that number or to the actual name of the group you want to go to, that's fine. Chelsea is going to start sorting. So we have a question about what's the difference between tech literacy and training. So tech literacy would be knowledge about technology. It's probably going to be pretty broad, whereas training is going to be more specific to better understanding how to work in inequitable conditions. And we can't handle probably the notifications in chat if you're telling us which group you want to go to, although we will try to catch those. You'll be more likely to get into the room you're requesting if you can change your name in Zoom. So by changing your name, you're going to go find your image, or and you're going to click the three dots, and you're going to click rename and then change your name.
You can also right click on the picture and that will bring down the menu as well to find the rename part. And if anybody's having any issues doing the rename, feel free to chat in the chat box. We've got some Mission Capital people who are helping kind of navigate those. Awesome.
All right, I'm going to give it a couple more minutes for folks to change their names. And then I'm going to start trying to give us a little more time for Chelsea to start assigning folks to the breakouts and explain what we're up to next.
And just a reminder, this is the first breakout. So even if you're on this one and you're having anxiety about or FOMO from the other ones, don't worry, we'll have a second conversation as well where you're able to break out again.
And yeah, I'll be explaining all the breakouts in just a moment, but generally the breakouts are going to be, the first one is going to be around 20 minutes. And yes, you can definitely just listen. And Chelsea and I will also be in the main room for folks if they don't get into the breakout of their choosing, we'll be there to also try and support. But we're not going into breakouts just yet. We're letting Chelsea, I'm keeping the screen up for just a few more minutes so that you can change your name, your Zoom name. And if you're and we're gonna also talk about how if you're on the phone, you might be able to interact if you want, but you can definitely just listen. And also I'm gonna be showing you the Miro boards, which will probably explain a little bit about how the interaction is going to work, and then how after this event, you'll be able to continue interacting in both the breakout sections and afterwards. All right, so I'm going to move us into explaining what we're up to in the breakout. So this will take about 5-ish minutes, maybe a little bit longer. So as we mentioned, we are going to be using Miro, which is an online whiteboarding tool. So I'm just showing you a big zoomed out picture of what you will see when you go to the Miro link as well. So I'm going to ask in a little bit if someone can share the Miro link from our team. But for now, I just want to kind of show you all what we're doing. Because it may seem a bit overwhelming, especially at first. But when we get into it, hopefully it'll make a little more sense. I'm definitely going to show you how everything works. And then in your breakouts, you're going to have hosts for your breakouts who are also going to reiterate and show you how things are working as well. So it's going to take a little time, but that's all right. We will do this together. So as I mentioned, we're going to be using Miro. You're going to land on a page that looks something similar to what you're seeing on the screen right now. All these boxes with different colors and different types of things on the screen. All right, now I'm going to actually move into Miro. So I'm going to change my screen. All right, so you should be seeing my Miro board right now. And when you get your link to the Miro board, you'll land on it and it'll look something like this, look very similar to this. Okay, so what you're seeing right now is the Miro board where you'll be interacting. And then over here on the left-hand side, you see all of these tools that you can use to interact with the board. And I'm going to dig in and show you that a little bit more in a minute. But first, I want to orient you to the board. So we're zoomed out right now. Obviously, it's hard to read much of anything. Over here in the bottom right-hand side, you will have something that looks like a map, or it'll probably be smaller actually, and you'll just have to click it, and that's okay. But that's how you can zoom in and out. The other feature you're probably going to want to know, which we'll remind you again later, is this feature up here. This little arrow at the top, it's what shows cursors associated with collaborators. So all of you are collaborators on this board. And since there are 160 plus people on this call, we're going to have a lot of cursors on this board. We have not facilitated an event with this many people on a board. So we highly recommend that what you do is you come up here to the top, and we'll show you again, and we'll show you in the breakouts as well. If you'll click this link, this button to hide or unhide. So right now you can see a few collaborators on my board, but when I click that, it hides them so that I can actually see the board, because there will be lots of collaborators on the board. All right, so now I'm going to zoom in and show you what we're up to. All right, so I come over here and on the right-hand side, and I click zoom. And then I also have to pan. So you might have to pan by going here and clicking the select tool and you get a little hand and you move up. Okay, so I'm dragging the screen around with me. So now we're going into the orientation section. And you see the agenda. It's a lot like a mini conference. You see the agenda, you see definitions that we're working by for digital equity by the NDIA, and then the organizing team and the breakout hosts, contact information for DECA and for Mission Capital, and then, and this is based on what's on the websites, and then our panelists, and then basic information that you might need to know. For instance, the recording notice that we already shared. We're recording the main room. We're also going to be sharing this Miro board publicly, and we're going to try to create some kind of summary document that can live for other folks to access as well. Just so you know, this Miro board will be available for you to edit for the rest of this week. So please don't feel like you have to put everything on the board today. We realize this is probably a bit overwhelming, all of the information. So just know that you can come back to it. You can share the link for other people to contribute to the board as well. And then a little information about DECA and Mission Capital. So you keep scrolling, you keep panning to the right, and you have a resources section. So we started populating this resources section, but what we're hoping you can do today is populate it as well. So in the chat, we've seen all of these resources shared. We'd love it if people can also share these resources on the Miro board so that other people who maybe were not able to attend today are also able to access that information. So we have examples of funding for digital equity and inclusion. We have a resource for nonprofit needs, tech needs specifically. And then if you want to learn more about digital equity, we have a few things we've already populated as well. If you hear an acronym that you're not sure about during the conversations today and you're like, what's that? We're trying to populate this board with those kinds of things. So if you hear an acronym and you know what it is and you have a link that's really accessible, feel free to go up and drop it in this part of the board. Then we also have a lot of data and insights resources that we wanted to share. So some of this data is local, some of these reports are local, some of them are national, but either way, there's a lot of stuff here for you to be able to go and access as well. So if you also know about data resources and you don't see it on this board, we'd love for you to also share and drop it in. All you have to do to share a link is to copy the link from your browser, point to wherever you want it to land on the Miro board, and then paste it there. And then also we have a section that maybe you're not seeing the data you want, or maybe you have other types of data you need. And of course, we can't read all of this report in all of these reports in one day. So just feel free to drop in there the type of data you need. So before we go further, I'm actually going to show you how you can interact with this board using stickies, digital stickies. So let's pretend we are wanting to enter something into what data do you need section. Over here on the right-hand side, in my tools section, I click sticky note, and that pops up multiple stickies. And I can choose whatever color I want. I'm gonna pick green, and I go over here and I drop it on the board right there. I just click where I want it to go. Now, unfortunately, it can be a little bit small because we've got such a big board today. So I have to drag it a little bit or make it a little bigger in this case. But I just start typing in whatever data I need. Maybe it's internet access in zip codes, which actually there is some data on that on the board. So that's an example. So I can keep it there. And then I can move it wherever I want. I can resize it if I want, make it smaller if I want. But that's how I create a sticky. And you're going to have an opportunity to practice this in your breakouts as well. So you won't just be limited here. If you are on your phone and you want a smartphone specifically, and you want to interact with this, you can also navigate to the Miro link. And what you do is you can use the comments feature. It doesn't allow you stickies, but you will be able to create contents or comments. So you just hold down on the screen wherever it is you want to put a comment and type it in there. For your hosts, you'll also be able to chat them things, and we'll try to be getting those on the boards as well. All right, so I'm going to delete my sticky, which I just highlighted, click it, and delete on the keyboard. All right, so now I'm going to zoom back out so I can kind of reorient you to where we are. So again, we were just at the top of this board, the orientation section and the resources and data insights section. For the next activity that we're going to be doing breakouts. So the reason you renamed yourself on Zoom is so that you can go in, so that we can organize you into breakouts. based on that, which we have a lot of folks here, so it's going to be big breakouts. So we're going to have 2 breakout sections. The first one, we're zooming in on this top part of the board, okay, this first breakout section. So you see that's a lot of things. There's going to be 4 breakouts, and each one of these sections is for a different breakout group. Okay, and we're going to go into the questions we're actually covering your breakout in a minute, but first I just want to orient you to the board. All right, so I've taken, well, in the background, after y'all voted, we renamed all of the breakout categories. So the first one is tech literacy, and your hosts are Tara Kirkland and Colleen Billiot from the city, and Chelsea is assigning them to your breakout, so they'll be hosting you and supporting you. So what you're going to do in the larger breakouts is you're going to answer these questions around challenges and then resources and ideas. And you're also going to have this practice area that you're going to do first, which is what's your favorite food. So you're going to practice with stickies and put your favorite food up there before you even bother getting into the questions. That way everyone can interact, or as many people can interact as possible. So the first breakout is tech literacy with Tara and Colleen. The second one is internet access with Matt Glazier and John Spears. The third breakout is training to work in digitally in equitable conditions with Stephanie Shaw and Jesse Rodriguez. And then the fourth breakout is hardware and resources with Caitlin Lowry and Francisco Galagos. All right, so we also have, you'll see at the bottom, this really long parking lot. And all that means is you can put whatever stickies in there you want. It may have nothing to do with those questions. It may be resources. It may be a question itself. It may be ideas. Who knows what it is? It's totally cool. Feel free to put a sticky in there with whatever's coming to mind. Then we're going to explain a little bit more in a little bit, but the second breakout, after you come back from your larger breakouts, is going to be held in this section of the board. And you're going to be breaking out into groups of 3 to 4, and it's going to be random. And then you're going to kind of debrief what you talked about in your larger breakout. And you're going to be when you are assigned your breakout, you're going to get a number. And again, we're going to go over this, so you don't have to worry about it. I just want to make sure everyone's oriented right now. And you're going to go to your table, your circle with your number, and you and your 2 to 3 other people are going to sit at that table and create stickies. All right. So zooming back out, then towards the end of today, in the last 30 minutes or so, we're going to move into this lower section on the board, where our breakout hosts from the large breakouts are going to produce themes and put them on the board so that we can share out more broadly beyond the folks that are attending here. And we're going to ask people to have call outs for collaboration. So we're going to have another panel that's going to discuss funding and resources in digital equity and tech needs for nonprofits. And then we've also started populating these boards around different categories where collaborations could occur. Education, workforce, basic needs, accessibility, things like that. And then of course, another big parking lot, other category. And we're going to explain a little bit more as we go on that one. All right, so those are the primary ways that you interact with the Miro board. Matt Glazier has offered to share that link, which he's just done. So everyone should have the link to the Miro board now, and you can feel free to go to it, but Chelsea's also gonna move you into breakout. So I'm gonna actually check with Chelsea to make sure she feels like we're ready to actually send everyone off to their breakouts.
We are indeed. So when I open the rooms, you'll be a little pop-up will click and it'll invite you to a breakout room. Feel free to join. If you get in the breakout room and you're in the wrong breakout room, you can hop back out and I can change which one you're in. And if you have any questions, feel free to hang back and I'll be here in the main room. Any questions that you might have, I'm happy to help kind of troubleshoot or make sure.
And I see a quick question about, can we visit multiple breakout groups? Unfortunately, because of the nature of Zoom, you'll be assigned to just one breakout, but you can certainly visit other boards. That's not a problem in Miro. We can't put you in another room, but that's generally the option right now. And then it will be randomized for the second breakout.
Okay. And with that, I'm going to open the breakout rooms.
And one thing more. So we're a little behind schedule, but not a lot. So we're going to say 20 minutes for the breakout, for this breakout group.